Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin O. Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our show today. Now, for everyone out there who has listened to our podcast, you will know that what I love to do is I take a single individual horror film. Doesn't matter what decade it was made in, doesn't matter what subgenre, but I take this single horror film, and I and a special guest like to kind of collate our ideals about this single film, critique, analyze, tell scary stories, even tell stories that aren't true, but we tell you they are true, that type of thing with the individual film that we're talking about. And we like to do this because we love you as our audience, and we love to make conversations about these films that most other people would never, ever do. That being said, we have a really good gem for you today, and hopefully if you have not seen it, you will actually go out there and search the film out, because we believe that it is worth searching out. But before I get to the name of the film, I want to introduce my special guest today. Her name is Sarah Panazzo. Thank you, Sarah, for coming out to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, we're always happy to have her here because she has great insight on the films that we discuss in the show.
You say that for everybody. Stop it.
Probably, but everyone has a different type of insight here. For everyone who's listening, Panazzo likes to research, do a little background on all the movies that we kind of talk about. So she gives a greater insight on that type of aspect of the films, more so than myself. That being said, the film that we're going to be discussing tonight is Underwater from 2000. I said Underworld because we were just discussing that movie right before the podcast, but this is Underwater from 2000, starring Kristen Stewart from the famous or infamous Twilight franchise. So if that was the reason why you have not seen that film, get those ideas out of your head, because this film is going to be, or it is, an actually great film, and we're going to talk about it so you have an idea of what to expect when you're watching this film. So, and by the way, the movie's celebrating its 5-year anniversary, which we kind of didn't know about because it doesn't seem like it was that long ago this movie was released. So it's a little bit over 5 years now, but 5-year anniversary. So Panazzo, how did you come about, or what were your thoughts about this movie when you first saw it, blah, 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 before we get to the plot and those type of things?
So I know I, like everybody else, was very hesitant to see it because of Kristen Stewart. But it is so underrated. And it's like not seeing any of Kristen Stewart's other movies just because of Twilight, or not seeing the greatness of Robert Pattinson's other movies just because of Twilight. But this was a surprisingly great movie. I mean, like, I don't know what I was expecting going into it. You've got this underwater semi-horror movie, but the thriller that you got and the fast pace and the effects are just unbelievable. And it is such a great watch because it will keep you on the edge of your seat the entire time. I don't think there's like any breathing room at all in this movie.
No. And I saw this film, I even though I never saw all the Twilight Zone or Twilight movies when they came out, I kind of like picked and choose, I think 1 or 2, but I saw Underwater. The thing is, I liked a lot of her other films.
And it's weird because it was like an 8-year difference between the last Twilight movie and this.
And it's still affecting people's thoughts about these films. That, the fact that it's unusual seeing her in what was perceived to be a straightforward horror movie thriller and not a Twilight kind of movie or a drama, which she's very known for. So that was one aspect of it. The other aspect is I just love aquatic horror movies. So anything that has people trapped in some type of location underwater, I'm going to be there no matter what. So I kind of went in going to go see that. I don't think the trailer sold the movie well at all. I think it was a bad marketing decision, but I know why, because they were trying to withhold a lot of the great stuff that comes in the final act.
Yes, it's very much like how they marketed Abigail, except Abigail revealed everything for the movie so people would go see it, whereas this one did not reveal a damn thing, and it pays off so well.
Yeah, it pays off so well. Now, that being said, if you've not seen Underwater, essentially it's about a group of deep sea mining workers who are just doing their day to day thing when what seems to be a natural disaster occurs, and most of their sub water mining posts in the Mariana Trench, it more or less explodes. And the few survivors have to get together to find a way to get to the surface because all of the escape pods in the main building have already left. Now, that being said, as they're trying to trek down to the sea floor, they gotta get to the sea floor first, trek to the sea floor, walk a mile plus to get to another station in order to get to more escape pods to then go up to the to surface. They come across some hibernating / sleeping sea monsters that they didn't know existed in the Mariana Trench, and some other things that come in the way, which makes this film a very ticking time bomb type of movie, because from the moment that the explosion happens, which is like 5 minutes within the film.
Yeah, it's like right away at the beginning. It just starts and it just
It
goes.
goes. It never stops. I think there is one moment where it stops, and that's when Kristen Stewart's character is by herself and
Yes, and she's taking a shower and just like
she's taking a
rinsing off
shower.
everything that happened. But yeah, I mean, between the underwater creatures and then the general hazards, because they talk a lot about like you can only
Mhm.
rise and fall so fast or so slow before your suit is depressurized the wrong way and you can implode or explode or anything else. And this happens multiple times in the film where you're wondering, okay, is the creature going to get them or is it going to be an environmental hazard that gets them?
Yeah, because so the very first probably good part of the third of the movie is the characters thinking that this is a natural disaster, but they don't know what happened, and they don't get any information really. They get like a final distress call about when it actually happened, but they don't know what it was that caused the disaster. Everything else starts to piece together as they're trying to get from point A to point B to point C. And this includes Kristen Stewart's character Nora, and then her mentor, so to speak, which is the Captain
Yeah,
Lucian, played
Lucian.
by Vincent Cassel, who I loved.
Oh
This
my gosh.
I love Vincent Cassel. I've seen so many of his French
He's
films; it's
so good.
ridiculous. And this film right here is like one of his normal characters. Like he's played so many far-reaching characters in his filmography that this one seems a little odd because it was so normal for the most part. And then of course, what's this TJ Miller? I have to mention him.
And this was right before he kind of went off the deep end with
And
everything.
imploded too, and his career imploded.
Yes. And then this was Jessica Henwick, pre like was it post Game of Thrones or something? But like she was like put down because of Game of Thrones and a few other things, and like people saw her in this, and this was like, oh, she can act in this.
Yeah, I saw her only in Iron Fist, is what I know her
That
from.
too. So
Um,
yeah, it's really like a whole group of actors who you may or may not have heard of, who might seem questionable, but it is very well pulled off.
well, yeah, because even John Gallagher, it took me a moment to
Yes.
realize that he's from. Oh my God! Now I'm trying to think of the show with the Aaron Sorkin show, Newsroom. He's from Newsroom. I was like, why do I know this guy? Oh, fucking Newsroom, because my wife loves that show, so she's seen it a billion times. I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere. And so all the actors in this film are going to be recognizable at some point, and it's kind of it's cool because you don't know who's going to get it by the monster, which is actually interesting. The way that it is sussed out throughout the film.
Mhm.
So, and the thing is that there have different monsters throughout the film. So like TJ Miller's character Paul. At one point, when they first see the first monster, they kind of realize he makes the offhand remark if this is a baby. Of course, you don't really know if it's a baby or not, or what it's a baby of, because the other monsters look fairly different from the little bitty.
Yes. And there's actually a lot of funny mirroring with that. So to start off with it's very much an underwater version of Alien. You've
Yes.
got the multiple levels of creature. The fact that in Alien you've got a spaceship named after a sea ship, and in this one you've got a sea ship named after a spaceship, the Kepler. And that whole mission is just genius. But then you've got all the little hints and things of like, okay, there's some similar signals that are close to Alien. And I mean, they took a lot of like just similarities from Alien to throw it into this.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's just the creatures itself, starting from the little itty bitty semi face hugger chest burster esque creature, is very alien-esque, except with tentacles, and then it very quickly turns into full on Lovecraftian creature from the Black Lagoon-esque monsters.
Yeah, so she's kind of started to describe both the more human sized monster as well as the big monster at the very end of the film. But the human sized monster we see most of the way through the film, because that's what is chasing them. And these things are not like dumb either. At one point when they're in the tunnel on the bottom of the seafloor, they keep hearing something on the outside, thinking that it's chasing them from the outside, which means that it knows it's in that they're in the tunnel. And then eventually it finds its way into the tunnel, and of course, one of our characters meets a quick demise, so to speak.
I mean, and it's just smart into the fact that like somebody knocks and then the monsters knock in return.
um,
So it's very creepy. They are able to track these people by their sound, by whatever, and they are incredibly smart.
Mm-hmm. And the other cool thing about the monsters themselves is that because they don't like the light, you only the way this is shot, you only get glimpses of them for the most part to the very end when they're all at the last station.
At the last station,
Yeah,
is it the Roebuck?
the Roebuck. Yeah, the Roebuck when they're all at
Yeah.
the Roebuck, and one of
And
the
then you realize that they're not just there.
yeah, the thing is that this is planned out like a disaster movie, like any of your typical summer disaster movies. Poseidon Adventure, the Towering Inferno. I was thinking of the one at San Andreas. It just escalates. The danger just escalates from point A to point B to point C as these group of people are trying to get to a safe harbor. And each time they get to some place they think they're safe, they're not safe, and of course something happens. Most of the time, it is not always one of the creatures. It's actually something else. What's happening is the main building, the main mining facility, is blows up and slowly falls upon their heads. So it damages a lot of the rest of the substructure that's on the floor. And the great thing is you get to see some of that damaged substructure as you watch the movie. So it seems contained, but you get little hints of the bigger world.
Yeah.
And you get bigger hints of the story itself as it expands, and the characters learn a little bit more each time about what has happened and what is going on.
And the movie as a whole, with that, is very claustrophobic because you're
Mhm.
either in these tight suits or you're
Yes.
underwater in these completely black spaces and they just have their light to shine. So you really don't know how much space you have, what is lurking around every corner. And like you were saying, Kevin, is like you get these little glimpses of
Mhm.
creatures here and there of whether it's the glowing eyes or them
Glowing eyes.
on the substructure. And it just keeps adding up. You get, like I said, those environmental hazards of like having to depressure and repressurize going in and out of the suits, and like
Mhm.
somebody explodes at some point because their glass is cracked and water air filters start running out, so they start struggling to breathe in these giant suits. And it's ultimately like, are we going to drown? Are we going to implode? Are we going to be ripped apart by these creatures? There are so many difficult obstacles, or just walking in the dark in one direction because you don't know where you are going.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
the horror of, am I going to get there? Or am I going to just slowly suffocate walking endlessly on the bottom of the ocean?
Yeah. Which is amazing because the sequence right before or right when Liam, played by John Gallagher, is more or less stolen by one of the creatures, and Captain Lucien goes after him. Lucien then gets entangled with one of the monsters and gets flown up, not out, flown up, and the pressurization is bound to kill him and Nora, who is attached to him. Those type of sequences are amazing because you see these two characters where they're not just thinking about that monster that has them whole, but they're also thinking the fact that they're going to implode because they're going too fast as they're rising. And one of the things is that Captain Lucien has to self-sacrifice because of that mentor-mentee relationship that these two characters have. He'd rather see her survive than both of them die by being imploded by pressure. Now, I do want to bring this up because I didn't see this the first time I saw the movie, or the second or third time, or maybe fourth time I saw the movie. But I saw it this recent time. I didn't realize it until I watched it recently that there is a sense of self-sacrifice between these characters in this film. Rodrigo does it at the very beginning when he sees that he has a crack in his helmet, but he takes that one knowing that he's going to die and gives the other helmets to the rest of them so they can get to the sea floor. That's in the very first section of the movie. Rodrigo, he wants to save everyone else, and he'll sacrifice himself. And then, of course, we have the scene where Captain Lucien sacrifices himself to save Nora, and then, of course, Nora makes the ultimate sacrifice at the very end to save Liam and Emily, who
Yes.
I didn't think about any of this when I was watching it, but it makes much more sense for this type of movie because these people have all lived and worked together, and some of them don't all actually know each other that well. Like Rodrigo doesn't know Nora when this.
Yeah, I think Rodrigo is the one odd man out the entire time, whereas everybody else kind of knows each other.
Well, Rodrigo and Paul know each other.
Because they've got like everybody, like you said, has a weird history. So like Captain Lucien is like Nora's like main head guy. He's trained her. He sees her as a daughter, which ties into his whole self-sacrifice because he lost his daughter when she was half of Nora's age, and she would have been Nora's age at this point in the movie. Nora has her whole relationship where her was it her fiance or just her fiance disappears while scuba diving because nobody was with him and they never found him. And so she takes that on herself, and she doesn't want Liam and Emily to have to break up their relationship because of what's happened to her. And then just like the fact that Nora and Liam have been friends for a long time, Paul and Nora have been friends for a long time. So you get this familiarity between all of them where they know each other so well, and they are willing to sacrifice themselves in case of everybody else.
Yeah, and even though it doesn't happen directly in the movie itself. Even Paul always makes jokes about sacrificing himself, and he doesn't mind doing it, especially when he goes out to see the other escape pod, which didn't make it to the surface. Him and Liam make that discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Paul. I hate to say he reminds me so much of the Bill Paxton character in Aliens, so much, except that he carries around the stuffed bunny rabbit, which is another motif that shows up throughout the whole film because we know whoever has a rabbit will be fine.
Well, and it's not even just that. There was a lot, besides the Lovecraftian stuff and the alien stuff, there are a lot of references to Alice in Wonderland in this. There are a ton. I mean, TJ Miller says a couple times, like, I think he's the one who has the Cheshire Cat tattoo. You've got the rabbit, and then he also is the one who says, when you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that's also a very slow play on one of the famous Cheshire Cat and Alice scenes. And then he references like, well, Alice cried so much she drowned in her own tears. How ironic. Yes. And so they reference it the entire time of how you are just going deeper and deeper into Wonderland, essentially, with no idea where you are going and what you are going to see.
No, because the only person who seems to know where they're going and what's down there is Lucien. Because they make a comment that no one has done a seafloor walk, but you kind of get the impression that Lucien, Captain Lucien, has definitely done it. And then, of course, at the mid station where Nora finds herself stranded by herself, she comes across all the stuff, all the old stuff that's been abandoned by Lucien, and that's where you find out about his daughter. So throughout the whole film, you're still finding out these little tidbits about the characters that make them much more human and interesting as the film goes along. I mean,
well, and with all that, with finding Lucien's stuff too, is he's been down there, and it starts making you think about, does he know more than he is letting on? Because he has been with the company for so long. The company is clearly trying to cover up what is it, Tian Industries? Which everybody has a lot of fun trying to figure out what that is. I thought it was Titan Industries, but a lot of people online are saying it's Lovecraftian Industries, which I think is also fun. But yeah, I mean, knowing that the company was covering this up, did they have bigger plans? Were they planning on reaching out? What were they actively trying to do? Were they trying to raise Cthulhu? What did Lucien have to do with this?
well,
Even their like motto for the company, we have big things in store for you. And it's like, okay, it's all hitting a little too close to home. And then you looked at like Lucien's stuff. I guess when they had the locker room scene originally, they were going to put more stuff in his locker that hinted at Lovecraft different horror-esque things, and it was then going to help lead off to the sequel, but we know nothing came of that, unfortunately. But like, he's got the little drawing of Cthulhu in his weird little mapped out section of his locker.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so there's little tidbits here and there of Cthulhu hiding in all aspects of this movie leading up to the ending.
Yeah, so I should have prefaced everyone, if you've not seen the movie and you didn't want spoilers, you probably shouldn't listen to us talk about the movie. Because we're getting closer and closer to the end of the movie as we talk. And so, yes, we don't want to give too much away. But it's hard not to talk about it because that's some of the elements that make this movie so much better than what it was marketed as. And why it's such a it already after 5 years has become more of a cult movie now because of all of this, which you would never think, to be honest with you, because it has Kristen Stewart in it. But this just shows that she has range and she likes to choose different types of films to be a part of. So.
Well, and like going like what you and I were talking about earlier before we started recording is, it's like going into From Dusk Till Dawn, not knowing that there are vampires at the end.
Yes, that's actually
it greatly changes the entire movie, knowing this is the direction they were aiming for the entire time. This is what they're hiding from you, and why you should see this movie is it is a brilliant underwater monster movie.
Yeah. I would put it up there as one of my favorites now. We talked about movies like, or in the show in previous episodes, we talked about the movies Deep Rising that I absolutely love, and Deep Star 6, and a lot of other ones. And I'm a huge fan of monster movies in general, but underwater movies are really fucking cool, and they don't get done enough. Because they just don't make any money. I have no idea why that is, to be honest with you. I tend to love these type of aquatic horror films, but they don't really make any money unless they have a shark or a crocodile.
Well, and I think it's hard to do, where this one did it very well between actually filming underwater and a mixture of being on like VFX screens where they filmed in complete darkness to get those underwater feelings. I think it's really hard to pull off a good underwater monster that's not an already existing creature, because it's hard to pull off those underwater looks in general. I mean, we look at how difficult it was just for the Avatar movies to start doing their underwater sequences and stuff like that. Like, we're only really getting into that now, versus any underwater creature we've really had before is like anaconda or sharks. You don't get a lot of like the great underwater monsters that look great. It's very difficult to pull off, and only now are we getting it. So I'm hoping this is kind of an entry into underwater creatures. I mean, we look at what Godzilla did, where we've got the whole underwater temple in one of the last ones. And And so I'm hoping that this kind of pushes forward more underwater monster movies because it is an entire genre that is missed out on. There are so many creepy things in real life that are down there that could eat you and do whatever. Like you don't even need to make stuff up.
And but they tend to go back to the Mariana Trench, which is where everything that's dangerous lives. So why
Yeah.
do you keep going there anyways? um, all right, so I'm trying to not say too much about it, but we're just going to go into the big Cthulhu monster at the very end because I love the Roebuck when we're introduced to the Roebuck, and you see Nora and Emily, and they're dragging Liam along the way, and they immediately see all of these monsters now hanging right above their heads next
And
to
it is just a creepy scene where it's like everything is sleeping and you're trying not to wake it up. And I'm trying to think of what movie else is like that because there's a
There's a
few.
few, and I can't think of them either.
Yes, where it's like don't wake up the sleeping monster and then you make one small noise and all of a sudden everything is alive.
Yeah, but it's beautifully lit because of the red lights, the colored lights from the actual Roebuck itself are just bouncing off of these creatures. And then, of course, when one of them accidentally wakes up and goes after Nora, I had forgotten this for some reason. I've seen this movie like 5, 6 times. I couldn't remember this. It tries to swallow her whole.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that it tried to swallow her and it is just so grotesque because like they're almost translucent so you can see her through him leading up to it.
Yeah, but it's so well done because you see that and I remember her gathering all her weapons when she was at the other station.
Yes.
You see it creeping up by her head, the flare gun, and when it goes off, it's like, yeah. And then of course, unfortunately, that wakes up the other monsters,
Yeah,
and
because they're not just like chilling there for no reason. There's actually like a giant monster that all of them, it's very Cloverfield-esque, where all of these
yes,
creatures are living parasites on the back of a larger monster.
yes, that's exactly the feeling I got when when they did the reveal. The big monster lifts up, all these smaller monsters go up with it, and you see, oh wait, these are all a bunch of little bitty monsters to a big monster. This is just like Cloverfield, which when they did it on Cloverfield and the little parasites are popping off of the monster in Cloverfield, I was like, oh, that's cool as shit.
Hmm.
I wish they had been in the movie more at Cloverfield, but in this movie, that's what we mostly see is that until the very end.
Yeah, until the very end, then you get the giant monster that is just it is very horrific. And I think it's the first time we've really seen Cthulhu-esque anything like full sized.
You might be right. Yeah. Huh. You might be right, unless you want to count Stranger Things.
No, that's not a Cthulhu monster. That's a weird other monster. But no, like this is I feel like the first time that we actually see Cthulhu in a movie. I
Huh.
could be very well wrong.
You know what? In most of the other, I think the closest you probably get is the giant monster at the very end of the Mist.
Yeah, because like you get like the whole like older Cthulhu movies, like Call of Cthulhu and such like that, but like I think this is the first big one that like we actually fully see.
Yeah. Now, I saw this at the theater, not knowing any of this shit before I went into that. And I
Yes.
almost stood up and stared at the screen. That's a Cthulhu! What the? I
Yes.
was like that so much. There's probably the theater's probably about a third of the way full when I saw it because I saw the opening weekend, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I immediately went to see the movie again after that to say, "Oh shit, I had to miss something. I had to."
Yeah, I as soon as I rented it and I saw it because I kept seeing it, I was like, okay, we might as well watch it. I think it was during COVID too, so we were like, what do we have to lose? Figure we throw it on, and then afterwards we could not stop talking about it enough. We were like, if you like especially Lovecraftian horror or just underwater horror in general, this is a great fucking movie to go into.
That's how I was telling all my friends about it when it came out. So it came out during COVID, and I was like I said, it's probably maybe the third of the way full in a small theater, maybe I don't remember exactly. And like I said, I wanted to stand up, but we all had masks on and shit when we seen that movie at the theater. So, and maybe that was part of the reason why the movie didn't make any money, but also it was dumped at the theater in January of all fucking months.
Yeah, I mean it was shot in 2017, so it was like sitting on a
Oh,
bench
really? I didn't know
for no
that.
reason for like 3 years.
Oh, yeah, the studio didn't know what to do with that. Hence,
Yeah.
the marketing sucked in the movie.
Well, and it leads to like how we said about like Abigail, like do you ruin the entire movie by saying what the true movie is, or do you hide most of it and hope people still go see it? Because that's like what happened with From Dusk Till Dawn, it's what happened with Abigail. I mean, there's so many movies that if you could possibly go in blind and get this reveal, it will blow your minds, but then how do you fill those seats?
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth watching if you have not seen it. It's definitely worth a rewatch if you have seen it because I forgot how fast it is and
It
just
is
how
fast.
vicious everything is.
Now, overall, when we're thinking about a Cthulhu movie, a story, do you think this was an effective movie, having not shown the monster to the very end? Do you think that that was a detriment to the movie? Because it's a question that hardcore Lovecraftian people probably ask themselves when they're watching this movie. Oh, it's not a Cthulhu movie. It's not a Lovecraft to the end.
Well, and so that's the great thing about Lovecraftian horror is the best stories have come from fans of Lovecraftian horror than have come from Lovecraft himself. Like the whole mythology that fans have created around this have built up such a great possible franchise, like just the whole IP as a general,
Oh yeah.
that I don't think Lovecraft himself could have ever figured. And the fact that it's exploded into space and underwater and every single aspect of horror, any Lovecraft person can find love in this movie because it hits on some of the older stuff that would hint at it versus what would be in the new world,
Yeah.
essentially.
Well, I always like to ask because I personally have never read a single H.P. Lovecraft story in my life, but I have seen a crap ton of stuff based on his works and ideals.
It's hard to get through, and like you get some of the short stories like Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities,
Mhm.
and some of the other like Twilight Zone-esque stuff or like Color Out of Space. Like people have taken these stories and adapted them as best as they could, but the whole point of them is that they are otherworldly to the point of mind-blowing nature, and it's very hard to show. Because like how do you show the color out of space without showing a color everybody hasn't already seen? Um, I mean, it's stuff like that, or you just get the whole horror-esque of everything. I mean, we've got the spin-off stuff of what was the Lovecraft show and book that they came out with?
Lovecraft Country.
Yes. So like you get like those spin-offs like that. You get like the Ballad of Black Tom and a bunch of other stuff that as dense as his older stuff is and as racist as his older stuff is, people are still able to expand the world into uh MMORPGs and just tons and tons of stuff. I mean, there's entire book series of like Scooby-Doo characters meeting Cthulhu and a whole Lovecraftian cult. I mean, you get little bits of it here and there and everywhere, and it's always so interesting because there are so many aspects of Lovecraft that you can really expand in any direction, whether it's a monster that comes from nothing, a monster that comes from space, a monster that comes from underwater. Like, there are no super hard guidelines because it was left so open, and the fans have created this ultimate fan fiction
Yeah.
to
Well,
make it work.
yeah, and I would like to add on Mike Mignola's Hellboy comics, which is
Yes.
steeped in H.P. Lovecraft lore. Not the movies are not really the movies have stayed away from that type of stuff for the most part. But the comic book universe, the Hellboy universe, is steeped in Lovecraft lore, among other things, because it's just rich in a lot of different things as well.
Yeah, and I mean it's just really all over the place. I mean, everybody's had their little bits of Lovecraft sprinkled in here and there. I mean, like Afterlife with Archie had a whole Lovecraftian thing with the Necronomicon. I mean, everybody knows what the Necronomicon is, whether they have known who Lovecraft is or not.
Yeah, well, a lot of hardcore horror fans will recognize that director Stuart Gordon, tried adapting a lot of Lovecraft stuff, but it's very rare when there comes a good horror film out there that kind of utilizes that whole mythology that wasn't him. um, which, by the way, do you remember who the director for the movie was? Why do I not have that?
So it is William Eubank, and he hasn't done too much. The only other really big horror thing he did was Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. He was mostly a cinematographer and he wrote a few things. He's actually got a few things in production, but he directed Land of Bad in 2024, Paranormal Activity Next of Kin in 21. This was 2020, and then he did The Signal in 2014.
Signal was good. Next of Kin, which they must have held that on a shelf for a while.
Yes.
Because that did not come out in 2021. That came out much later, I would have thought.
But yeah, he's working on a movie currently with Russell Crowe called The Last Druid. And he is co-writing and directing that one. And then he is doing a modern take on The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, Jesus. I don't think I've ever seen a single film based on the Count of Monte Cristo yet.
You haven't seen one?
No.
Oh my God.
I just kind of skipped over that one. I've watched a lot of movies, but the Count of Monte Cristo, I never read the book, so I never was interested in the movies.
I was never interested in the movies either, but it was one of those things that it pops up so many times. Like, I don't know how you've never seen one.
I have enough horror films to watch. I don't have time to watch those type of movies. Oh, Jesus. So, getting back to Underwater, I'm trying to think of anything else that we need to discuss about Underwater or not to give away about Underwater.
I do have some fun facts. So, like I said, there was the whole TN Industries, which is the main company that they work for, and that has the big cover up. We have big things in store for you. The opening and closing credits show a bunch of like the background paperwork blacked out, like Godzilla style.
Yes, the ending especially.
Where they're covering up operations in the Mariana Trench, and they either know about the creatures and don't care, or they're actively trying to contact them. But then hidden in, I believe, not the Roebuck, but the other underground base that Nora finds all of Lucian's stuff. They talk about the parent company of TN Industries, which is Pontus. And anybody who is a fan of Greek mythology knows that Pontus was the deity of the sea before Poseidon and all the other Olympian gods, and he sided with all of the Titans before the Olympians took over Olympus.
Oh, that's interesting.
So just fun little like naming fun facts. A lot of the opening credit feature maps and schematics that were actively used to build the set. And both of the stations are actually the same exact set, but they would just modify and move around pieces so that they seemed like two completely different sets.
That I'm not surprised at.
I'm not either. I love when they do that, and then you can be like, oh yeah, I see this point and this point, and then it's like, oh my God, this is an entirely different set using the same 5 pieces.
I will say though, at the end credits, it's really great to see that they're trying to cover up what the 2 survivors have said. They're hiding them away.
Yes.
And eventually they say they're going to restart drilling soon. I was like, oh, it's like they didn't learn their lesson from the stories of the first time. And that's where your ideals come into play, where they might have known what was down there all along. I didn't think about that, but you're right. They could have known all along what was down there.
And they were actively trying to wake it, and these were the human sacrifices meant to have them rise, but we'll never know now because we're not going to get a sequel unless they decide to finally make one, which they should, because this is a fantastic movie. Marco Beltrami does the composing with Brandon Roberts, and Beltrami is just like,
I love the score for this
oh
movie.
my God, his scores are just phenomenal. He does so many different horror movies and just wonderful movies in general, but this one too is just fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. The score for this movie makes the pace go so much faster, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. I love the music for this movie.
It really does. It would be a completely different movie if it was not in it at all.
Yeah,
Budget wise, they spent 50 to 65 million and they only made about 41 million worldwide.
yeah.
But like we said, given the time with COVID and everything, I'm not surprised it didn't do well at the box office. But now that it is out and about in the world, it should have a larger following than what it does.
Well, it's definitely got a larger following now. From my perspective, only because I've read a lot more of people are more likely to talk about the Lovecraft angles with the film now that it's 5 years past than they were when the movie first came out, where it was almost like an embargo on telling what the movie was really about. So no one was interested in going to go see it back then. Plus, we had COVID going on and people weren't seeing movies. Plus, it came out in January, which is the dumping ground for movies. Like, this movie did not have a chance in hell of actually being popular or making money like the movie Unhinged, which surprised everybody by making money at the theater. Which was, if you remember that one, the Russell Crowe movie where he goes a little crazy, which surprised everyone by making money in a time when nobody was going to the movies except for us horror fans. So.
Yes, exactly, which is still similar now. The only original movies we really get anymore is through horror.
Oh, that's so sad. Well, we get a lot of musical biographies now. A shit ton of those damn movies. There's not a musician or a group of musicians out there that's not having a movie made about them right now.
Yeah.
I see the look of everyone. You can't see the look on Panasso's face when she's like, "Oh my god, not another one."
It was cool when we had like the once in a while where we got like Johnny Cash's Walk the Line
Yeah,
and stuff like
Ray.
that. And then it became like, okay, we're gonna have 5 Elvis movies this year. And then we're gonna have all these other ones about people I don't care about, or just semi-decent ones that everyone's gonna write off and nobody's ever gonna talk about again.
Or the ones that try and be about musicians, like Vox Lux, and the rest of them that come out. No one remembers all this shit.
No.
Oh, come on! We have the Michael Jackson movie coming out, part 1 and part 2, pretty soon.
What?
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Yes, there is a Michael Jackson movie coming out, and they've decided to split it up into 2 movies, a part 1 and part 2. I'm like, does anyone actually want to watch that much of Michael Jackson's life? Really?
I mean, it's bad enough that we've got stage musicals of all these things now.
Yes.
Like they've all got their own music, so everybody's got to have a stage musical. And now we've got to have a movie version of the stage musical. Just get on this topic, Kevin. We're talking about underwater. Why are we at Michael Jackson?
Because it's funny we talk about, horror is like one of the last genres that people always come up with new and original and creative ideals constantly. It's not like a secondhand thing. Whereas with fantasy films, you almost never ever see an original ideal. It is all based on a book, based on a previous movie, some type of IP. Yes. I can't even think of the last fantasy movie that was original whatsoever. I can't. It's hard.
Yeah.
And then of course, comedies are really based on the actors more often than not. And let's not even talk about romantic films because those are almost never done anymore.
Yeah. We've talked about this a lot at work lately, and basically rom-com as a whole has gone away because Hallmark has essentially cornered the market where they can just keep throwing them out.
Yes, they do. They do throw them out. And, even Netflix and some of the other streaming services aren't doing that many rom-coms. It's very rare. It's very rare. Horror films, though, strive on all streaming platforms. Every streaming platform has their group of horror films that come out. Sometimes they're linked to specific dates and months of the year, like Halloween and so on and so forth. But at the theater, we get them Monday, January to December. January we have people will dump horror films out in January, but they'll also release them in the heart of December during the time when most families are getting together to think they want to see family movies. But no, we'll stick a horror film in there just to make the holidays seem more exciting. I think that films like this, when done right, marketed right, can thrive in January because they're some of the only things that are being released in January. So it doesn't seem like they're just being dumped at the theater, which is, I think, what happened with Megan. Megan came out in February, I believe, when it was originally released. It made a crap ton more money than it ever should have. And that's same with like some of the underworld movies. They've been releasing them January and February because they know they'll make a lot of money in the early part of the year when they're the only things out at the theater. It's a shame. This movie got probably set on the shelf for several years, and then it got released during COVID, which killed most all movies. But it is getting a slow and steady cult following, and it has been out for 5 years now. And as long as you all out there listening can get past your prejudice against Kristen Stewart, you will enjoy this movie tremendously because she is a phenomenal presence in this film, along with the rest of her cast, which are very capable and very. It's a great ensemble cast.
Well, and it's also great because like we are way past the point of Twilight, and like now that she's had so many other big movies, like what was it? I want to say Drive Away Dolls, but I feel like that's the wrong one.
Yes, I don't think she's in Drive Away Dolls.
No, it's another one that was similar around the same. Love Lies Bleeding.
Oh yeah, Love Lies Bleeding.
But yeah, I mean, she's had so many other great movies come out that like, okay, if you haven't seen this already because of her, it is time to give her the ultimate push to go see this. I mean, it's like not seeing The Lighthouse or The Batman for Robert Pattinson.
Oh yeah,
totally missing out on an entire other genre of their work that they are actively taking seriously.
Oh yeah, Robert Pattinson has become one of my favorite actors.
Oh my gosh, I love him in everything he is in.
The dude just goes out of his way. And I'll say this for Kristen Stewart. They both have decided that after those Twilight movies, they're going to take charge of their own careers and they're going to do whatever they want to do and not what people expect them to do. And they have both excelled in that and shown just how their range is. So, yes, I will agree with you on that one. And I just can't reiterate that enough, that some of the prejudices that people have towards certain horror films should put those prejudices away and step back and just go watch them. Not just because we are saying they're good, but because you might be missing out on something you might actually enjoy. Whether you're a fan of Lovecraft or not, I think this is a strong film. This is a disaster movie, first and foremost. This is a natural disaster movie that just has a hook at the end, a monster in it. But other than that, you can enjoy this as a disaster movie as well. Like Gravity as a disaster movie. Dude, that's another movie. From point A to point B, it's a nonstop ticking time bomb movie. That's how I see this one. So, with that, for everyone listening, we like to rate the movies between the 1 star and 5 stars. 1 star being horrible, 5 stars being amazingly excellent. Where on the spectrum do you place Underwater?
I would have to say it's a 4 on my list. It is not like the greatest movie ever, but it is really, really damn good. Like, if you are in the mood for an underwater horror movie, it's great. Is it one of the classics like Halloween? No, it's not gonna like blow anything out of the water because it's introducing something new and exciting other than Cthulhu, but it is a great movie to watch. You can have fun with TJ Miller's character. You will feel the dread and the impending doom the entire movie, and you will be on the edge of your seat waiting for somebody to implode or depressurize or get ripped apart by monsters the entire movie, and it is so much fun.
I'm giving the film 4.5 stars. I almost give it a 5 because this is another one of those movies where the more I watch it, the more I see more stuff that I didn't pick up on before. And one of the big selling points for me is the fact that it's a Lovecraft inspired Cthulhu movie, and I don't see enough of those, and so when I see something that does it right, in my opinion, I have to gravitate towards it and tell people about it, and that's what I do with this movie. The fact that I can watch this movie and not ever get bored because it's a ticking time bomb movie, I think is what makes it better than most of the other typical movies out there that are horror based. Because a lot of the other horror movies out there that you kind of watch, they slow down when they try and have character moments and character beats. But this movie has integrated those character beats within the fact that it's an action-packed suspense thriller, and it never really stops. And that's what I liked about this. I think the only time it stops is the time where Nora and Emily are discussing their pets on the seafloor right before they get to the Roebuck, which is another theme that we forgot to talk about that also shows up because all the characters tend to have some type of pet or someone at home that comes in, and that's the humanized parts of each of the characters. TJ Miller having obviously the rabbit that he goes around the entire time. And it's funny because that rabbit is what signifies someone who's going to be safe throughout the whole fucking movie. It just gets passed on between people.
So, but I mean, also just the visual effects of this entire movie, like we said earlier, is so well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like even five years ago, watching it now, it hasn't aged at all. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. And 10 years, 15 years from now, when we're celebrating the 50th or 25th anniversary, we'll be able to say, oh, does it hold up as well? Does it hold up as well? Because it's not like John Carpenter's The Thing practical effects that still hold up. God knows how long since that movie.
But it's also not Deep Rising, where
no, it's not Deep Rising. Deep Rising came out.
You very clearly see it's blue screen and VFX.
No, it's definitely not that. All right. Thank you. I want to thank you, Panazzo, for joining me on this episode of Conversation for Horror. We want to thank you all for listening to us rant and rave about the movie Underwater with Kristen Stewart. For everyone out there, if you're listening, please check out our previous episodes. You can watch episodes on your favorite podcast apps, Spotify or YouTube, as well as make sure you check out our sister podcast, Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we want to wish you a pleasant day, and remember to stay out of the water. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.